If you've been intrigued by what you've been seeing on this channel and are considering moving to Saipan, if you'd like a sunnier, simpler, slower life while still being part of the US, then start with the Saipan Living Relocation Guide, an A to Z reference of everything you'll need to adjust to life here on Saipan, Tinian, or Rota. Order here on YouTube, on Amazon, or at saipanliving.com. Then consider a phone or Zoom consultation where you can ask any question at all to plan your move to Saipan. Then when you're ready to take the leap, you can sign up for a reconnaissance tour before you move, or a relocation tour, visit different neighborhoods, see what life is like, get your paperwork in order, your PO box, your ID, so you can hit the ground running. As a bonus, if you sign up for any tour or consultation, you'll get a copy of the Fast Track Kit that has all the forms and documents and applications you need to start your residency. My name is Walt Goodridge. Let's make your move to Saipan simple, fast, and stress-free. Hello, my name is Walt Goodridge. I'm the Jamaican on Saipan, and let's get started. If you're interested in discovering the history and the mystery of these islands, Saipan, Tinian, and Rota, of the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands, and this is the place. If you're interested in the tourism here, if you're interested in history here, if you're interested in relocating here, as many people are, then get your questions ready and we will begin. Okay, so let me know as this stream starts that everything is coming through. If the sound is coming through okay, everything looks good on my end. And if the images are coming through, then we'll get started. By the way, I always say that this stream will go much better and will be much more fun if you participate, if you ask questions that are of interest to you. So I'd like to suggest that you do that, get your questions ready. And as we proceed, it's possible I might miss a question. They might scroll by here on my screen too fast, so I might not actually get to see them. So if you'd like to call my attention to a particular question, then you can consider adding a super chat donation to it, and that'll have it pop out so I can see it and address it, and I'll give it extra special attention. And you can contribute any amount you like. I think the lowest is $1 or $2. So when the pop-up comes up, there should be a slide bar at the bottom that allows you to change the amount donated below the default that it starts at. Okay. So with that, let's see what else I have here. As I say, you can ask any question at all. Any question. If it's a personal question, I cannot be offended or embarrassed to ask anything at all that you like. However, keep in mind that some questions are better left unanswered. As we used to say in Jamaica when I was growing up, not every truth need be known. So there are certain things that I may not want to share on the YouTube platform, but if it's a question that you really want an answer to, then you can contact me personally, Walt at discoversaipan.com, and I'll do my best to answer. If you're watching this after the live stream, you can still ask questions. The live stream will be up even afterwards, and you can ask questions. I will be notified, and I'll either save them for the next live stream, or if it's something that's time sensitive, I might contact you directly or respond in the comments. So feel free to participate even if you're watching this after the live stream. Okay, now let's start with some of the questions that have accumulated over the week. Let's start with this one that I liked. Lotus Flower 1362 asked, let's see here. Lotus Flower 1362 asked, thank you for all the informative videos about Saipan. My question is, what kinds of fruits, flowers, and vegetables can a person grow in their garden on Saipan? Also, are there any limits to the type of seeds one can bring to the island? Okay, I spoke to a friend of mine who is a farmer and a landscaper, and also he has a piggery and he raises cattle also. And he told me that, well, first of all, if you go to any of the hardware stores here, you can find seeds that of flowers and fruits and vegetables that you're used to stateside. I'm assuming you're coming from the States. And those you can purchase and plant because they're on sale here. It's possible for you to plant and grow them here if they are zoned for tropical weather. That's one thing my friend Patrick pointed out to me, is that the seeds from the authorized legitimate seed companies will be zoned for weather. So make sure that you get seeds of plants that are zoned for tropical weather here on Saipan, not rated for cold weather. Okay. Then the next thing is, as you probably know, bringing in live fruits and vegetables is typically prohibited, even though you might be coming from the mainland US to Saipan, US. Bringing in fruits and vegetables and perishables and meat and that sort of thing is frowned upon and illegal. So those will be confiscated from you. But if you bring the packets from a legitimate seed company, and however they prepare them to make them safe for uh, transport between countries, you'll be okay. So, but don't bring seeds that you've plucked out of your own garden and wrapped in, a cloth and hidden in your suitcase. That won't be good. That will incur a fine and other issues you don't want to deal with. So, um, there are no limits except for the ones that nature imposes on you. As I mentioned, if if the plants themselves are zoned for cold weather, then they may not grow well here. But generally, um, you can, if you want seeds of plants and vegetables that are here, then you can go to the Saturday market, as I do, and buy your papayas, buy your chico, buy your guavas, and just use those seeds that are already here locally. So, no limits as far as I know, as far as I was told, and you're free to come and live your horticultural life as you see fit. All right. It seems that the Mark Klundegren asked, it seems that the usual selection of last-minute cheap flights to Saipan have dried up in the last couple of weeks. Is there common? Is this common around the holidays? Yes. Mark, I'm going to share a little secret with you. Um, this is one of those secrets that you may not hear other places. So yes, around Christmas time, there are people doing a lot of traveling in between the islands and going to visit loved ones in this on the States. So the low cost fares may dry up. However, there is one weird trick that you can use to find the a lower price, but you'll need to email me that on that one. All right, email me at walt@discoversaipan.com, and I will tell you how to do that. All right, it involves setting on the United.com website, but typically, yes, prices do go up sometimes. Generally, between Guam and Saipan, they don't usually go up because it's somewhat of a quasi commuter flight. The prices have, I think United has endeavored to maintain the prices fairly constant for those of us who are traveling back and forth. But yes, that's typical around the holidays. The high season here in Saipan tends to be towards the holiday season and into January and February when the Lunar New Year is. So we have generally, that's typically in the years past when the hotel occupancy would be most, would be the highest. But typical, but contact me and I'll see what I can give you that might be of help. All right. So let's see. Uh, I was looking, Trap House Music commented, I was looking at vintage Kansas City Chiefs fleece jacket and saw the label said made in Northern Mariana Islands. Interesting to learn of this place. Yes, these are this is the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands, CNMI, and it's comprised of 15 islands. Saipan, Tinian, and Rota are the inhabited islands. And for many years, starting in the 80s until 2009, we had garment factories here, and that were bolstering the Saipan economy. And we had about 20,000 more people on the island, and the revenue to the government was close to $1 billion, I've heard. And uh, yes, the loophole that these companies, they were making clothes for Tommy Hilfiger, Donna Karan, all of those different names, and because Saipan controlled its own immigration and labor, Saipan could bring in workers, mostly from China, and work in the garment factories. And because Saipan controlled its own labor laws, we had a different minimum wage than was in the States. So it would be less than it was stateside. And the big advantage beyond that was that any clothes made here would be able to have the label "Made in the USA," which they were able to avoid paying or violating import quotas and whatever import taxes existed at that time. So yes, many of the clothes that you wear were actually made right here in the Northern Mariana Islands. And if you check the channel, you'll see some of the videos I took when I came to the island, and the garment factories are still there. So yeah, very interesting place. It's the sort of thing a lot of people don't know about, but yes, absolutely. Okay. Thanks, Noah 9216. Thanks for becoming a member, an island supporter. Really appreciate that. Okay. Um, Mark asks again, I've been scanning flights from the West Coast, San Diego, and San Francisco seem consistently cheapest, but we'll follow up with you. Okay, yes. The other thing you may want to consider, it may not save you a lot, but if you're looking for a flight from the mainland to the States, you may not want to go on a single airline. If possible, it's more work, but you might be able to save a few dollars if you book each leg independently. So let's say you book a leg from the States to Hong Kong or to the Philippines, and then book Philippine Airlines from the Philippines to Guam, and then Saipan, and then United from Guam to Saipan. It's a lot of work. Sometimes it doesn't really amount to that much savings, but maybe a few $100s if you're lucky. But that's an option that you might want to consider as well. Thanks for that. Okay, greetings from Reading, Pennsylvania. Hi, Jammer. Thanks for checking in, and thanks for that super chat a while back. Much appreciated. Okay, next question. Definitely trying to make a lane of my own, replied. I like that screen name, lane of my own. Definitely trying to make my way there. Give me a shack and a space to grow veggies, and I'm set. What are the rents like for a one bedroom? You could get a one bedroom as low as under 500, under 400, even under 300, depending on where on the island it is. And I've mentioned before that some of the places, the best way I find is to drive around the neighborhood and look for rent signs and do it that way. Another option is to check Facebook. If you look for specific Saipan buy and sell, or Facebook real estate, or Facebook apartments on you might be able to find people who are listing their apartments there. But my best advice that I give people is to come, do not sign any lease or make any agreement before you come here and actually see the lay of the land, and make sure that what you see in the photographs matches what's in reality. And if you can, stay at a hotel, budget hotel for a few days while you do your scouting. Uh, Several people who have ended up relocating here have done just that, and that might be the best way to proceed. But again, depending on where you live on the island, then rents could be much cheaper than you might be paying in the States. All right. Let's see. Someone had asked a question in the last stream about um, getting a container to ship items from the States to Saipan that may be too heavy to ship otherwise. So, as an example, let's say you want to ship a treadmill here, and shipping otherwise, obviously, one of the only ways for it to come here would be by container. So I spoke to one of the buyers here on Saipan if it would be possible to arrange and coordinate with a company that is already bringing in a container to have your treadmill shipped to the dock or sent to the dock, and then loaded onto that container. And the phrase that she used to describe it was co-loading, um, loading the same container, different companies at the same time, co-loading. And it is possible. You would have to find a vendor who's willing to do that. It might mess up their logistics. There was one option she suggested, two options actually. One was the container that they ship from the States that contains fruits and vegetables actually could be considered for a co-loading arrangement. But again, logistically, it just may not work out because that's a refrigerated that's a refrigerated container. The other option is we do have freight forwarders here, and I don't really want to give out too much specific information for companies as much as I'd like to help them. But again, email me and I'll give you the names of some of the freight forwarding companies, or you can do a search online, and that may be your best bet to proceed. Okay, let's see. Thanks again for upgrading to Relocation Ups Insider, P Noah 9216. Really appreciate the support. That does go a long way to encourage me. All right. Let's see. Next question. Is it possible to find a no luxury dormitory, campsite, boat, or room for $200 or less per month? That is from Billy Billionaire. Billy Billionaire, we don't have camps here. It's not that kind of party here on Saipan. Um, the dormitories, no, I guess unless you were to make an arrangement with some of the schools here. I know there's one Korean school that has their own dorm facility, so that's something you could arrange with them. They may or may not want to do that, but your best bet would be to boats to lease. I haven't really seen that. The only person I've met lived on a boat, had his own boat, so leasing a boat, that's an interesting idea. Once you come here, you can check out the marina uh, here on Saipan and see if there are people who would be interested in leasing their boats. That's an interesting thing. I hadn't heard about that before. Um, and for the cost, $200 if it's just a room in a house, I think that would be doable. But again, that would require you being around the island and benefiting from word of mouth, asking people when you're in the supermarkets, or in the bars, striking up conversation, finding out if people have any rooms for rent, or driving around the neighborhoods, as I've done with visitors, and found places that had signs in the windows. So I think it's doable at that rate, because you can get a full apartment for 400, 500, 600, all the way up. So yeah, it should be possible for you to get a single room share uh, a house for that cost. All right. Um, discover debit cards. Okay, that's something I'm not aware of. Mark Klundegren says, apparently, Discover debit and credit cards are not accepted on the Northern Mariana Islands, unlike Guam, except for getting cash from ATMs. Have you run into this issue before with tourists or transplants? No, I have not. I guess maybe most people have Visa or MasterCard since they're the most prevalent ones, but I haven't heard of anyone mention that. But I will ask someone at the supermarket when I do my errand today. That's a very good question. I wasn't aware of that. I'm not sure why it would be restricted, but let me know also where you got that information. Was it someone's actual experience? um, that's important because many websites, as I always mention, get information wrong here. Even ChatGPT gets information wrong. But that's a very good question. I will check that out today, as a matter of fact, or if anyone is listening or watching the live stream and know for a fact from their own experience that that is the case, let me know. But thanks for that question. Great question. I will research that. Okay, next. Let's Inspire One Light asked a few days ago in response to a video I did about, or a question I answered about AAA being available on Saipan. I mentioned that I don't think it is, but that the community, the personality of the community is such that you probably won't, if you were to break down, you probably wouldn't be stranded for too long. There would be people who would help you, or at least police would pass by. You could flag them down. Um, but she added, uh, a question to the Article 12 discussion that we had. And Article 12 is a article within the CNMI Constitution that limits land ownership to people of Northern Marianas descent. And the question was, would you say that Hawaii is a cautionary tale about not having an Article 12? Absolutely. And I'm not the only one of that opinion. That's what people say all the time, that when you have land that's owned by indigenous folks, whether it's on Guam or Hawaii, who have a history and a tradition of living on the land tax-free, then to impose property taxes ultimately and inevitably will lead to to allow ownership by foreigners will ultimately and inevitably lead to the imposition of property taxes, which then tends to displace the individuals who were living on the land before. And that, from what I'm told, is happened in Hawaii and on Guam as well. So, yep, absolutely a cautionary tale. But just to be fair, the other side of the argument is that the restriction of the sale of land to only people of Northern Marianas descent is a deterrent for um, foreigners and foreign investment in the island. So that's the other side that people will put forth. All right. Um, okay. Are there any expat groups on Saipan for get-togethers? And that question was for Jammer 411. There are no official groups I know of. However, generally, for the most part, expats can be found congregating in various places. So, for example, there are some popular bars here on the island, and everyone knows if you go there, you'll generally find a lot of expats carousing and having fun there. So I don't know if there's an official club. The club would be the bar on a Friday night or a Saturday night, but hope that's helpful. But you won't have any difficulty locating them. But I'm going to give you a little warning. many of the people um, with whom I've interacted who have moved from the mainland have done so to get away from other people on the mainland. So many people, probably myself included, generally don't congregate with other mainlanders. Okay, I'll just speak for myself. So um, it's possible that you might run into people who specifically left the mainland because they didn't want to interact with other people from the mainland, whatever that mindset and worldview and habits and traits that represents for them. But I'll talk about that in a later part. I have a little five types of people you meet here on Saipan. So keep that in mind. But generally, no, I don't think there's a group as such. All right, good question. Thanks for that, Jammer. Now, I guess maybe that's a good point for me to segue into another discussion about the types of people that we meet here or that I've met here. So, a little bit of context. I have had never felt as if I fit in when I was when my family moved from Jamaica to live in the States. Always felt like an outsider. Always um, felt like I'm an outsider looking in. In the words of Little Anthony and the Imperials, uh, I feel like an outsider looking in. So I'm always an observer. That may also be part of my personality type. But anyway, so when the opportunity to move to Saipan came, I took it. And once I landed here, I realized that it's a different breed of people that I was meeting here. And I was thankful for that. So the first type I'll mention in no particular order are multilinguals. So really fascinating thing that I don't think I had encountered that until that time, but there are people here from China, from the Philippines, from Thailand, from Bangladesh, from Sri Lanka, from other Pacific islands who speak many, many languages just as a matter of course, just because they grew up in a family where the father spoke one dialect, the mother spoke one dialect, the father is Japanese, the mother is Chinese. So it's a really fascinating thing to run into people who also have an affinity for language such that they can pick it up really easy. People have come here. I have friends who have come from Thailand, had to work in a Chinese garment factory and picked up the language and speaks fluent Chinese within a few months, weeks and months. So really fascinating the versatility that people have, their ability to move fluidly between the languages and just how that influences people's culture. And another thing that's fascinating about that is many of those people, even though they have qualities and qualifications that would be very valuable stateside, many of them, or anywhere else in the world, many of them take it for granted. I know one young lady who speaks Tagalog and then speaks Bisaya, that's in the Philippines, and speaks English, and probably others I'm not aware, but she feels self-conscious and feels shy hanging out with English speakers because she doesn't feel confident in her ability to speak English. So even though she speaks four or more languages, she doesn't feel like she can mingle with Americans who speak English. Really fascinating how that happens. Okay, second, let's see. So those types of people I've met, and it's really been fascinating. Second type are world travelers. Here on Saipan, it's the sort of place you don't get to by accident, as we often say. So the people who end up here are people who've made a deliberate attempt um, to come here. people who are used to this sort of lifestyle that sends them to different areas. We have military folks, we have merchant marines, we have just nomads and wanderers. Many people here used to live in Alaska, so there's a whole different group of people and personalities who are world travelers. Really interesting to run into those individuals, and it makes you, I think, it hones your personality to make you more tolerant, make you more understanding of how the world is. One of the flaws that I think mainlanders and anyone who doesn't travel often suffer from is the fact that their worldview is very narrow. They're not able to perceive different realities, not able to perceive different ways of being and thinking and acting and eating. And so they come to go on vacation, come to Saipan and only want to eat McDonald's or, or believe that the US worldview is a global worldview. So that's interesting to run into world travelers. I also run into people who are members of clubs, online clubs. There's one in particular called the Century Travelers Club or Travelers Century Club, one of those. And it's for people who've made it their mission in life to visit every place on the earth possible. And even though there are 192 or 96 countries in the world, they the list includes I think over 300. So Saipan counts as a or Saipan and Tinian count as a single location. Guam counts as a single location, even though it's part of the U.S. So I've run into people who've had experience visiting dozens and hundreds of countries, and that has been really fascinating to run into those people as well. And I mentioned this as well, but veterans, because Saipan was the site of the infamous Battle of Saipan, one of the deadliest battles of the Pacific Theater during World War II. I've run into many veterans, many people who are in the military, who are stationed on bases in Japan and Korea. I've run into war buffs who've come here to do research, um, and family members who are coming to reconnect to see where their fathers and grandfathers were during the Battle of Saipan. So it's really interesting to meet that range of people who I otherwise wouldn't have met otherwise. There's no way living in an apartment in Harlem or the Bronx where I used to live that I would run into these individuals. So that has really been fascinating. And then I sort of alluded to this before. The next group, number 4, nomadpreneurs, OFWs, and migrant workers. So OFW is a term that I think the Philippines uses mostly, overseas foreign workers. So the labor force here on Saipan, for the most part, are Filipinos in particular, but also Thailanders and Bangladeshis and other groups. But OFWs, people who are used to moving to an area to avail themselves of the economic advantages that exist. And then if things tank, then they'll go to the Middle East or they'll go to Australia or they'll go to, so really fascinating. And I had a fellow friend of mine from Ghana who sold merchants clothing, that sort of thing. And he has been to Hong Kong, he'd been to Africa, and so he jumped around various places in the world selling textiles. So really interesting, that sort of personality. So and then finally, I will share um, a little insight into a secret that was told to me by a mainlander woman, American woman. We were discussing life and love here on the island, and she mentioned that one of the jokes among the Western women, the American women who come here, is that the males here tend to fall into two categories, and they're either misfits or missionaries. All right. And I believe to some degree I would fall into both categories, but definitely a misfit, never felt like I fit in. So I'd probably fall into the misfit category. And then the missionary category, those people who are here to save the world. We have actual missionaries, and we have people who are into saving the planet. We have people who, maybe myself, who do workshops, write books. So it's an interesting phenomenon that the Western women have picked up on, that the men here tend to be the misfits or missionaries, of which I am one. So really interesting. Those are the five types of, or some of the types of people I've met here. Really glad that I did. And getting back to veterans, war buffs, and the people who love them gives me a nice segue to share a book I promised one of my former clients, tour client, really cool fellow named Fred Brems. He sent me a copy of a book that he wrote, and part of his research for this book was done here on Saipan. So that's how I met him and learned a lot. We traveled around the island, and we tried to locate specific spots that he wanted to investigate. So he wrote a book about his father. It's called Knights of Freedom, with the Hell on Wheels Armored Division in World War II. So really interesting book, really deeply researched. He's a type of guy who came to the island with a topographic map, which he left with me and gave me, and with books and resources. Another one he left with me as well. Thanks for that, Fred. And so he painstakingly researched this book about his father. His father's name was also Frederick C. Brems, and he was drafted in 1941, 6 months before Pearl Harbor. He spent all of World War II as a tanker, serving in the European theater in the U.S. Army's 2nd Armored Hell on Wheels Division, one of the most renowned units in American military history. The 2nd Armored served in North Africa, Sicily, France, Belgium, and Germany, and fought in many celebrated engagements, including Normandy, the Battle of the Bulge, and the Rhine Campaign. So for you war buffs out there, a book you might not otherwise come across, but because of my connections here on Saipan, check this out. Let me know what you think, but do support Fred. And I did promise I'd do a review, Fred. Sorry it took so long, but that is one of the perks of living here, is that people who I just normally wouldn't have met otherwise, and who, my ultimate point, share a similar personality of being afflicted with the wanderlust bug. People who tend to roam rather than stay put in one place. People who are attracted to the differences rather than the similarities, whether it's in relationships, whether it's in cultures. So one of the things that's fascinating to me is embracing the differences that exist among individuals. So, so those are the people that you meet when you're walking down the street each day here on Saipan. If you know where that reference is from, you'll win a prize. Okay. All right. So let's see if I missed any questions here. Those are all the questions that accumulated. I do have one more. So let's see what we can do here. Um, Ideal Lion asked a question, and his question is, I am a 60-year-old American Indian who has been in the liquor business in Kentucky for a while. I'm looking for new opportunities and considering a move within the United States. Any assistance in finding an existing business and a house to live in would be greatly appreciated. So I've given the advice on the housing already. There are real estate agents you can contact depending on what you're willing to pay. The real estate agents typically handle some on the higher end. But if you want something on the lower end, then your best bet is to search on Facebook, or to search once you get here, if you can manage to come here to do a reconnaissance tour first, or do your own reconnaissance. Um, Now, in terms of finding an existing business to take over, that's a little tricky. Um, as I've mentioned in previous live streams, the economy here, because tourism is the only game in town, is sort of suffering right now. So things are a little down. So to take over a business here might be easier in the sense that it might be a buyer's market, but in terms of uh, the viability of such a business, if it's not something that's based on staples like a simple supermarket, laundromat, or something that people need every day. Um, I'm not sure I would. Um, you need to be a little vigilant about the long-term prospects, or at least the short-term prospects, given the economy right now. We don't know how long that downturn will last. Um, but my best bet, if you can manage this somehow, is to find a way to generate your income from off island. I know not everyone can do this, but if you can, if you have an apartment or a house in the States that you're thinking of leaving that you could rent or lease to somebody else, rent out to somebody else, that could provide you with a regular passive income stream that might be better. If you can find something that you can do remotely that's based on an economy that's not directly tied to Saipan, that might be your best bet. If you can manage it. Otherwise, if you have a pension or retirement income that's coming in, then you might need to scale back and live on that. But I know the entrepreneurial spirit is in you, but perhaps switching to a different different business model that's internet based, that allows an income stream from an economy or from a wide enough swath of the population that is not physically confined to Saipan might be your best bet. Just a little tip on my behalf, but in terms of finding businesses for sale, um, you could look in the one place to look might be job vacancy announcements. If you look for JVA Saipan on the internet, you'll see a site that lists job vacancy announcements. That could be one way just to get a sense of which companies exist on the island. So that might provide you with some idea of some um, businesses you might be able to contact and find out, make some contacts and find out if there's anything for sale. Um, so that's my best advice in terms of taking over a business for sale. Just as a side note, on Guam, as a matter of fact, there's some high-end, this may or may not affect you, but some high-end retailers are leaving Guam at the same time. And also, I think island on Guam just lost the Hard Rock Cafe as well. So there is a dip in the economy right now, which could be good because this might be just the best time to buy into a market that's dipping before it hopefully takes off again. But just something to keep in mind about what's going on in the economy here. All right, now Hulk 5141 asked, hey, Walt, thanks for your insight. Do you know if Saipan has part-time work for retirees from the mainland? Possibly. And again, check the job vacancy announcements. Most of the people here, when they're looking for workers, are generally hiring the contract workers, the foreign workers. But I'm sure there are places that might hire. I know at least two people they're volunteering at the hospital, but it's possible that there might be government agencies or the hospital or clinics that might be open to hiring someone part-time. Um, it might be a little easier for them because when they hire the contract worker, it involves a CW1 visa that they have to sponsor and pay for. And if I'm not mistaken, well, I don't think it affects CW workers, but there might be a fee that they have to pay just to hire that contract worker. So being a retiree who is already an American citizen, I'm assuming, then there would be no need for a special visa, which might make you more appealing to an employer to hire. All right, so that's something to consider. Check the job vacancy announcements and maybe follow up with me, and we'll see what else we can get. Okay. Is Saipan experiencing a drought right now? I know this is the rainy season, but don't see a lot of rain in the forecast. No, I don't think I would qualify it as a drought. In fact, I've driven by the golf courses, and they are at least one a few weeks ago. It was exceptionally green, so I know there is more rain coming. It is the rainy season. There is more rain falling recently. I wouldn't say it's a drought. I don't know what the official numbers are, but we have been getting actually a little bit more rain than usual on a daily basis. Another thing to keep in mind is that sometimes the forecast that you're getting is not for Saipan at all. I'm not sure if there's a weather station that's dedicated to Saipan. So many times what you're getting is the Guam forecast, the Guam weather reports. All right. And even though we're close, we're only a 45-minute flight, then the weather patterns can vary drastically. The weather patterns can vary drastically from here where I am to across the street. So keep in mind sometimes that the weather station that you might be getting your information from might be Guam and not Saipan. Okay. Now, let's see. Finally, let's get to this question. Redcat 900 said, and I'm going to correct your grammar here. I had come across this video and just wanted to know if it's a commute to Guam from Saipan. Now, I mentioned that the new commuter terminal just opened up here on Saipan, and the commuter airline, one airline, is the airline that serves regular daily flights between Saipan and Tinian, Saipan and Rota, and they do serve Guam as well. However, Guam is not is I guess it is considered a commuter flight, but it's because United also handles Guam. It's not really, but there is a cheap flight from Saipan to Guam, so it's not officially commuter. I don't know if it's official, but it's quasi commuter in the sense that many people do the trip, but there are ways for you to get a slightly cheaper flight from Saipan to Guam and back because of that. So. Um, to answer your question, it's only a 45-minute flight, so um, people do commute, but I don't know if it's officially considered a commuter flight um, as one normally would between Saipan and Tinian. All right. So great. Really appreciate the support. Now, if you're here on Saipan, I promised my friend I'd mention this. I mentioned him earlier, the fellow who I asked about the seeds. He has a piggery and he raises cattle here. And so if you're here on Saipan and watching this and you are looking to buy cuts of pork or beef for the Thanksgiving dinner or the upcoming Christmas holidays, then you can contact me at walt@discoversaipan.com and I'll share his information with you. And from what I understand, and I just learned this myself, so the medium-sized pig can serve maybe about 20-25 people who typically buy 7 pounds of meat at a time for their banquet or whatever. Some people buy the whole pig, some people buy parts of it. Um, Unfortunately, being a vegan myself, I won't be supporting my friend's business. But otherwise, if you are here on Saipan and looking for where to purchase fresh meat here as opposed to the frozen that you might buy in the supermarket, give me contact me at walt at discoversaipan.com and I'll share that with you. Okay, great, great, great. Really appreciate the participation today. It's about 45, 46 minutes now. Now, if you guys don't have any more questions, I will wrap things up. If you want me to speak on any other topic, please feel free. Okay. I'm looking through the questions here, see if there's anything else that I may have overlooked. And I think I've gotten all of them today. Looking forward to this growing even more. So really appreciate your support. Again, feel free to ask any questions in the future or as the week goes on in any of the comments below any of the videos, and I will keep track of them and then answer them in the next live stream. All right. So thanks for everyone. To everyone, hi, One Man Show. Thanks for joining in. Let's see, what else can I talk about just to wrap up? Cool. So as we move forward, please let me know what sorts of topics you would like to cover. I have some ideas of certain things that that might be interesting because not everyone is interested in relocating. Or I'd like to expand to talk about other things. We can talk about history a little bit. I'm not a history buff. We can talk a little bit about the culture. When it comes to those sorts of questions, I'm more than happy to invite somebody in to uh, flex their expertise. There was one fellow I just ran into over the weekend at Sabalo who's writing a book, and I won't share what the topic is, but it's something um, uh, that war buffs might be interested in um, when it comes to Saipan's recent history. So I've encouraged him to complete the book. One of the things I do here on Saipan is I do writers' workshops. So I've done several workshops at the library, encouraging and helping people actually complete their books. And I've had a few success stories with that as well. So I encouraged him to complete it, and then promise that once he does, we'll have him on the channel to um, to talk about the book, but I'm more than happy to invite people on. If we have cultural questions I can't answer, I'll have some of my friends, Chamorro or Carolinian, come on to answer those questions. So those would be really interesting. In fact, a live stream with live questions might be a good idea. Someone suggested a ride around with the police, or that came up last live stream. I'm not sure if I would do that one, but that's a good idea. If anyone else has their own YouTube channel and wants to do that, feel free to use that idea. What else? Any other ideas you think might make the channel a little bit more appealing? Things that you'd like to see and do? Let me know. Okay. Someone mentioned neighborhood comparison. I sort of alluded to this, and the Mark Klundegren is interested in getting comparisons of which neighborhoods to seek out, which neighborhoods to avoid if one is considering relocating to the island. And I mentioned before, one of the reasons I may not want to do that has just to do with privacy. Um, my my role, as I see it, is to share my experience living here on Saipan, help you make your decision as to whether you'd like to relocate, whether or not. But it's not to do that and by sacrificing the privacy and the civility here on the island. So I don't want to put people here on display on the internet by driving around their neighborhoods, showing their uh, homes, that sort of thing, because it's a small community. So I personally didn't want to do that. I can talk about it in general, but I really think the best way uh, is to actually see the neighborhoods for yourself. I've mentioned this in a general sense. Typically, what's most convenient is our neighborhoods on the west coast of the island, Chalankanoa, Susupi, Oleai, those neighborhoods that are along Beach Road, along the west coast, that so that if you wanted to avail yourself of the CNMI transit, you could easily get back and forth. And it's convenient depending on where you live. You could conveniently even walk to the big supermarket, to the library, to the post office. So those are my favorite neighborhoods. Then we have a little bit further north, Garapan. That's where a lot of the hotels and tourist businesses are located. Also, I live there as well. That might be convenient as well. So, other than those, some of the other neighborhoods that are off the beaten path are really up to you to decide whether it's the sort of thing you could abide based on what you see when you get here. But I don't want to show the neighborhoods and um, uh, deprive people of and compromise people's privacy. Or that's my opinion. But off the record, by email or on a tour or the consultation, I will gladly discuss which ones I think I would live and which ones I think I would rather not live um, for various reasons. So feel free to contact me, and I definitely will. All right. Michael Cooley, 66 says, "Is there frozen pizza? I gotta know." All right. Unfortunately, Michael, just kidding. Yes, there is frozen pizza. You can get that in the supermarket, I'm sure. And in fact, there are places here where you can get um, a freshly made pizza. I am pretty sure those still exist, different places. And we do have McDonald's on the island as well, and Subway sandwich as well, and Wendy's and Kentucky Fried Chicken. So if that's your um, preference, that's your flavor, then you can surely find that. All right. So hope that's helpful. The there is the lifestyle here is very similar to, you can replicate a mainland lifestyle here to a very high degree. There are certain things you can't get here, but generally you can, many of the things that you're used to, whether it's kefir, as one gentleman is looking for, or pizza, you can find that here in the supermarkets. Some of the things that might be a bit challenging, that were a bit challenging for me, are some of the health products. So when I came to the island, I don't think they were Terra chips at the time or Lara bars, and I made it a point to ask the buyers at the biggest stores to carry those. So over the years, there is now a separate aisle for certain products that normally wouldn't have been carried before. So as the number of people who are interested in those sorts of products grew, there was more of a demand and more of a justification for carrying those products. Um, so generally, though, you can find most of what you want. And if it's a specialty item, then if it's available on Amazon, then as long as you have the patience, then you can get what you're looking for. So cool. Appreciate that. All right. So that's about it. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for checking in. Really appreciated the participation this time around. I will be doing another live stream unless I have a tour, but I'll make that announcement. I'll schedule it so you can be able to do a notify me alert for the next live stream. But feel free to ask any questions. If you're watching this after the live stream, feel free to ask your questions in the comments below this live stream, and I will make note of them and answer them next time. So with that said, I'd like to thank you guys for checking in. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next video. This is Walt Goodridge the Jamaican on Saipan, signing off.